community radio station in the country, which is incredible. We've got about 170 volunteers at every time, and our program is actually being syndicated to other stations across the country. So something really, really awesome to think about with CFMU, and we're always very proud to be a part of this. And I've been here for about 3-4 years, and it's been a fantastic ride ever since. So love CFMU. If you can, go out to cfmu.ca/fundraiser because of everything that Dougie Ford is doing. Some of our fundraising is going to get cut. So if you can spare a dollar, please donate to a great cause and help keep community radio going. With that said, we'll jump right into it now. Our guest this week is none other than Marcus Noel, former SMU, I should say, football player and current Stampeders coach. How you doing, Marcus?
How you doing, Tom?
I'm doing well, my man. I'm doing well. We're very excited to have you on here. The main reason why we wanted to have you out is so we can get into the AUS and talk about the conference as it is. But before we jump into that, I want to get to know you a little bit better. Start off with your career. Where did you play your high school ball?
At Aldershot High School in Burlington.
Beautiful. And obviously you picked going to St. Mary's more than anything. What was the recruiting process for you like?
Coaches kind of set up an interview, kind of recruiting visit with Coach Blake Nell. Came down to high school. We talked and didn't really even know where Halifax was, but I kind of knew it was out east. I didn't have internet on my phone to be able to check it out. I had to go to get an atlas, but no, it was great, a great trip. And the big thing was I saw that St. Mary's was on the track of winning, and they had gone to the Vanier 2 years before, lost to Laval. And then they were in the semifinals the year before, and Neil was basically like he wanted to, make this push, and he had a lot of guys from the area, and he wanted us to come out there and kind of get over the top, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. And Blake Nill himself is a bit of a legendary coach within youth sports. He's obviously won a Vanier out east, and then went out west and established Calgary as the dominant team out west, and now has moved on to UBC and won another Vanier out with that. So talk a little bit about him. How is Blake Nill as a coach?
He's a tough coach. Tough coach, man. He's about 6'6", big man. Former old lineman.
Yeah.
So he was about 300 pounds on his light days.
Beautiful.
Yeah, he's a big man. But he's a tough coach. But he knew how to win. He knew how to get the best out of players. He knew that he always fostered. The one thing I always walked away from Blake was a sense of competition. No one was too good for competition, right? He just fostered that all the way through. He would mix things up, and it was really never an easy road. Right, yeah. And then that's what the thing with Blake Nell. He was and defensively, we were the last team where he actually was a defensive coordinator. When he moved on to Calgary, he just became a head coach, and still at UBC, he's just a head coach. His detail for the game was crazy. As an old lineman trade who's now coaching defense, could tell you in detail as a DB, D lineman, or linebacker your positions and what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. He was very detailed.
That's fantastic. Well, obviously, he's got to be doing something right if he's going to be such a dominant coach in youth sports as it is. But now, when you had those championship teams out there, because when you were out there, you never lost a championship in the AUS. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, with those teams, were they predominantly people from Nova Scotia, or were they recruiting from all across the country?
All across country. So I would say half our team was from Ontario.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I'd say another third of the team was from Quebec.
Wow,
yeah, easily. Yeah, it was to have an Atlantic football player. It was usually a young guy, maybe 2 or 3 of them, maybe 5.
Really?
But, yeah, it was not. And out west. I mean, it was. I could say we were all across the country, and probably predominantly was Ontario and Quebec, and then still guys from out west.
Wow.
Well, I think that changed.
I think that the tough part about it is that a lot of kids I find are staying closer to home now.
Okay.
Even we see in Quebec, right? We don't see as many Quebec players leaving Quebec, right? It's not like they got more teams. They actually, they still have the same amount of teams, but kids are staying closer to home. I find kids, in the Hamilton, Burlington, this sort of area, they're staying closer to home. They're not really venturing out. We had at least 12, I want to say 10 to 12 players from Hamilton on our team. Yeah, we're talking Dave Stala, Fleming, Mullings. The list goes on, right? I mean, that guys who are all Canadians, guys that went to the CFL, had great careers. They were Hamilton guys, right? And they were gone. Cathedral was a big hunting ground back then.
Sure.
Kind of like St. Thomas More is now.
Yeah. And so back in the day, I know that Ontario didn't have the ability to give out scholarships, but out east did. Were they partial scholarships or were they full blown?
They're full blown.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I know now they are as well. But back then, I don't really know. I wasn't really as, I guess, public knowledge. Because I didn't know what out west did. I certainly didn't know what Quebec did.
Sure.
But I know nowadays they like 2019. Yeah, you get full scholarships to be. Your full education's paid for.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, I don't think that's common knowledge. Because, did you know that, Maddie?
I didn't even know that either.
Yeah.
I thought the whole thing, I thought it was the same as what Ontario was now, but then Ontario just decided we're going to give out scholarships, and that's why I kind of thought people venture close to home, but no, that's I didn't even know that.
Yeah, west and out east, they can give full academic scholarships.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you take 5 and 5, that could be taken care of.
Huh.
Yeah, so, because of that, I don't understand how, is it in your opinion, do you think it's a recruiting thing? Why there's not a whole lot of things? I know you said there's a lot of kids who want to stay at home,
yeah.
But if you go to because there's great football all across this country and any way you could look at it, and you're telling me that if you go to a city that's not really known for having a whole lot of wealth, and you approach a kid and say, hey, if you keep your grades up and you continue to play at a high level, we can pay for your university career. He's not going to jump at that fact versus a 4,500 or whatever at another Ontario university. You know what I mean? I don't understand how their recruiting is not the same as it was.
I really, it's a great question. I've thought about it, and I being far away from home sometimes. Again, it just comes down to how many kids I've asked. I've coached myself and say, hey, you got opportunities at these schools. Mm-hmm. Halifax is a great place. You got Acadia, which is a great school. You can get a great education at Acadia if you're in certain programs, and kids just don't pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And back then it was very much it was commonplace for guys to go to even CEGEP and go play 2 years of college ball in Quebec and then go on to play NCAA. Mm-hmm. There's at least a handful of kids who've done that.
Yeah.
And we don't see that anymore. We don't see guys going to Quebec, going to college and then moving on from there. We don't see as many kids going out west. I don't run into a lot of kids that go to Calgary, UBC, who are from Ontario. Mm-hmm. Right? Again, great schools. And Saskatchewan. Mm-hmm. That's again, if you may not want to be in Saskatchewan, but that's a program that takes care of their football players.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? You fly to all your games. That's a pretty cool experience. We don't hear players going that way. They always stay kind of within their bubble, mm-hmm. right? And it just, I don't know why it was more global then, more nationwide, and now it's kind of pockets.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting to note. Obviously thinking about this, preparing before the show, the last person that I really knew. Well, there's a few guys when I was coming out that went out west and things like that. But the last person in the modern, in 2014 kind of thing, who went out west was Darius Sirocco, who just so happens to be the starting left guard now for Hamilton Tiger Cats in his first year. He was an all-star offensive lineman, unbelievable. Mm-hmm. And coincidentally, the coach who recruited him out to Calgary, Blake Nill.
Right.
So is it a recruiting thing? Is it just somebody who's willing to go out and do those kind of things? I really don't understand it because, you guys are obviously the 2002 team, the last team to win a Vanier Cup from out east. Yeah. St. Mary's has actually been back since then in 2007 as well. Yeah. But if you go back, the last team from out east to make it to a Vanier Cup who wasn't St. Mary's was St. FX in 1996. Even I'm very, very confident that in back in the day, all the teams were very competitive and things like that. But for whatever reason, things have dropped off, and it's almost the perception has dropped off.
Oh yeah,
yes.
Because in 2014, we played against Mount Allison here to go to the Vanier Cup, and we beat them, but we beat them by 24-12. It wasn't a blowout by any means. It was a good team. They had a great defense, and once again, their star defensive player was a D lineman from Hamilton. So we have this idea in our heads about the AUS. Obviously, the past 2 years doesn't help when you're beating teams by 70 points. But they haven't. It's not like there always been such a drop off. There's competition that's out there. They just need to get over the hump again.
I think maybe it's a marketing thing. I know we're from Ontario, so we always hear about OUA, Western Mac, Guelph, and then out west you have this prestige Calgary team, and that kind of puts Canada West on the map. And over in Quebec you got Laval and Montreal, so that kind of it was mainly Laval and recently Montreal's come on. So that's how you think Quebec, but other than St. Mary's back in the day, now when you think about the Atlantic, there's no real like powerhouse, no prestige team that stands out. So I kind of feel like maybe that's part of the reason why it's like kind of fallen off the map a little bit. There's just like no marketing for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, yeah, it's almost, you get your own kind of publicity if you are like a powerhouse. Like you think teams in the OUA, immediately you think of Western.
Yeah,
that's the first thing that comes to your head. Absolutely. Out west, Calgary. Out obviously in Quebec, it's Laval, and that you're already getting, you know, those teams that are already so good are getting extra publicity just by mentioning the conference name. You know, and then every time that I say AUS, because of the prestige and because I had some buddies there, I always think of SMU. Like I forget that like St. FX is still out there, and I didn't even like Bishops is now
out there. Yeah,
you know what I mean. And like I had never heard of Mount Allison until they came to play against us.
Same.
You know what I mean? Like it's just, and maybe that's, you know, if you're a recruiter, if you're a part of the St. Mary's team, you got to do whatever you can to get a recruiter in Ontario. You know, because more often than not, some of the best players come out of Ontario consistently. So you got to make sure that you have a presence here and do something, because by the sounds of what you're saying, the football out in Nova Scotia is just not where the rest of the country is.
No, it's not anymore. Everyone needs to be better.
For sure.
Everybody needs to be better. You know, sometimes I think the size maybe of the schools, because like Mount Allison only has 4,000 students. Right, mm-hmm. that sometimes is going to be a drawback. Do I want to travel 2.5 hours by plane, you know, and then spend 3-4 months there, have to come back, and it's only 4,000 people, where I can go to Guelph and there's 20,000 people at the school. Sure. Right? The town of Sackville, where Mount A is probably less than 20,000. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So, you know, or in and around there. So that's tough, and you know, St. FX again, great name to it. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows about St. FX. We all know about the X ring. Mm-hmm. Then why are we not going? Right? Yeah. Why is it because people think they're going to lose if you go there? Well, they don't realize that these schools back a lot of their sports, because that is the pro sport technically in the area. Mm-hmm. If you're from the surrounding hour circumference around that school, you go to the sports games. You either go to the hockey game, you go to the football games, because it's a night out for some of these people. Sure. Right? Yeah. You don't really get that. You don't really know about that till you go. Yeah. It's not like that was a recruiting tactic to say, hey, if you go to Halifax, there's no pro teams in Halifax. It's the Halifax Mooseheads, the Q. Yeah. Q hockey team. That's it.
They should use that for sure. Why does nobody know about that?
It's again, not a tactic that they use, and maybe we should. To me, it's like I know about these things. I've seen it, but to be able to convey that to someone else, tell them to get on a flight for 2.5 hours, and that's the thing. Are they going to do that, or are they just going to drive 7 hours and go to Ottawa? Yeah. Right? That's sometimes, again, Ottawa, the size of Ottawa. I mean, St. Mary's is less than 10,000 students. It's not. Mm-hmm. It's not a huge university either. Mm-hmm. Right? And I think they are the largest. If not, maybe Acadia's maybe a little bigger, but I don't think so. Over in Wolfville, there might be 7,000. So the biggest school you're going to is 10,000. But I think Halifax offers so much more, right? Especially in the summertime and everything else they got going on. Mm-hmm. I might be a little biased.
You know what's crazy too? I know you guys will probably know this, but probably the most legendary Canadian quarterback ever went to Acadia, an AUS school, Larry Justanis. I bet you no one else outside of Burlington and Acadia would know that, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's something for sure. But the other thing that I've always thought of and it's always kind of been like a negative kind of spotlight on the AUS, is the stadium itself. Because the maximum capacity at St. Mary's is what, a couple thousand, something like that. And people look at the stadium size and they're like, oh, that looks like a high school stadium, blah blah blah. But if you can get consistently 2,000 people out there and they're filled there, like Western for the Yates Cup couldn't get 4,000 people and their stadium holds 10,000. I would rather have 2,000 and fill it than 3,000, but in a stadium that holds 10 and it looks terrible. You know what I mean? And so even before you get on the field, before anything happens, you do those promotional videos where it's a sky shot of the stadium itself, and they see the stands and they're like, oh, this is Bush League. Well, no, if their fans care, and if you're known, then it doesn't matter how many people are there or not. It's a huge problem in Ontario right now trying to get people out to games, and Western even had free drinks and free food and one free beer. A free beer for students.
Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah.
People didn't show up. People still didn't show. Wow.
Still didn't show. So that's another problem that people are facing now in Ontario. But if that's not an issue out in Halifax or out east, then that should be another talking point. That's got to be another thing, because obviously, you're from St. Mary's, you're a proud alumni, you got the SMU swag on as we speak.
Yeah.
How well is your relationship with the current head coach?
We've talked a fair bit. He's actually a former DB from the NCAA. He played in Florida State.
Oh, wow.
I like to kind of just chime in with him once in a while, kind of if I can get a couple of gems from him.
Yeah.
He was actually part of Blake Nils. He was Blake Nils' defensive coordinator when they won the Vanier and UBC.
Okay.
And that's when he got the job over at St. Mary's. I've been to because now that Bishops is in the East, I've gone to all the games that are at Bishops as their home game, right?
Right.
And I've been able to talk to him there and just I try to keep a good relationship. I think that's a huge, goal of mine to be in the U one day. Mm-hmm. And you want to start to ask coaches and just get a relationship with them, but also understand what they're looking for. See the questions that they start asking me as a high school level coach,
mm-hmm.
a rep coach, what things they're looking for, right? And it kind of gets me in tune with okay, that's how he's looking for these players. That's what he's not looking for.
Sure,
right? It's been a good experience so far with Colsey.
That's great. So with the coach itself, because obviously, like as an alumni, you must have there's got to be at least some kind of, not regrets, but anticipations for like the games coming up. Like St. Mary's wins the Loney Bowl. Great. Now we got to play Western. Now we got to play Calgary. Now we got to play Laval. And it's like, there's got to be something that's like, oh, this could get bad. But, but you're confident with this coach eventually.
Yeah, one thing is he's all over. He's flying all over. The one contacts that he has, I think, over any other coach for that matter, especially out east, is that he's from the States. Mm-hmm. So he's going to have some of those contacts for kids who want to come north of the border. I think that's a plus for him because he does get some of these gems.
Really?
Yeah, from it's been some D linemen that he's gotten to come up, a couple,
wow.
And I think a linebacker as well. But he's been in Southern Ontario. He's been in this area of Ontario at least twice that I know of, right? Mm-hmm. That he's officially been out here getting players. Been at St. Thomas More. Been at some strong powerhouse schools in the area, and then he's been out west. I know he did a tour basically from BC all the way to Saskatchewan and then flew back.
Yeah,
so
sure.
he's on the map, and I am confident because, if we just keep competing, I think that any team can win. I mean, there's no team there's no personality. There's no person who knows the U that could have told me that UBC was going to run the table that year.
Yeah.
Right? They came out of nowhere, like everyone said, but I bet you those guys knew that they could win. They have a great coach. They had a great running game. They had a quarterback that didn't turn over the ball, and their defense was lights out. Pretty good formula, right? But because it was UBC, they've been losing all these years. Blake Nils' first year, sure, give him a couple years, boom, comes and runs the table and beats significant teams.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Along the way, so that you just gotta believe in the process, and you gotta believe that the coach knows what he's doing, and it takes some years. I mean, I think this is his fourth year, so it took a couple years to you shed what was there, and you kind of bring in your identity, and now it's really starting to move forward. And I just want to hopefully see him get past the hump, which has been the Loney Bowl championship game. It seems like we can't get past there.
Yeah.
But once we do, then it's anybody's game. I mean, you be the best team that day. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't like some of these guys might be. The thing that helped us is we were never worried about Laval. Like Laval has always been a big school. It's always been a raucous stadium. Mm-hmm. But if you just walk in and you just play your game, they do the same. You've seen it yourself, Tom. You can beat teams that are supposed to be the juggernaut.
Sure.
Just because you just play your game.
Yeah.
And the faster you realize that in the game, the better you are.
Yeah.
Right. If it takes you to the third quarter, realize, man, I should just play my game. You might already be down 20.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you realize that in the first quarter, I always say like the first two drives are the most important drives for each side. Because that way, you've been able to usually sustain the nerves, and hopefully they're big, like heavy, like an uppercut. Mm-hmm. From there, everybody settles in. Just play your game, right? We're gonna win this.
Absolutely, that's great. And it's once again, it's trying to fight perceptions because, like we mentioned earlier, Bishops is now in that it's in the East, and they were already. They were kind of like a middle of the pack, maybe a lower tier at Quebec, but they were still winning some games. This past year, they didn't win a single game. Is that right?
They haven't won a game yet in the AUS.
So,
yeah.
It may be, you may be able to say, the AUS, the top of the AUS is not where the top of the rest of the country is, but they are consistently competitive all throughout versus anybody else. Like you go against like an Ontario, like a York, a Toronto. It was a Waterloo, which is coming back up now, but like any team from the AUS goes to play them, it's going to be a 17-0 game.
Oh yeah, I agree.
So it's fighting that perception of saying like all football in the AUS is crap. Well, no, it's not. It's competitive football. You're going to be playing teams twice, sometimes 3 times in a row in a same year. It's very hard to beat a team twice, let alone 3 times. So that demands that you have like your best possible plays, everything like that. So it's really, it seems like, at least, it's just fighting that idea of perception, like going up to a kid as a recruiter being like, hey, I'm from St. Mary's, and then being like, you're from the AUS? Why would I want to talk to you? Well, this is why. Right. And then smack the kid because he's a dick.
Yeah. I think so too. I mean, I know me personally, like from my perspective, like I think like something to do with the number of teams in a a conference really like affects things. I mean, like I remember like me and my buddies back in the day would joke about the AUS, like I want to play the same team like 3 times. You know, right? It kind of gets annoying. And then I know Bishop's obviously moving over. I think they're trying to expand the conference. I found out the other day there's a league out in the Atlantic. It's like the AFL. Yeah. And it has like Dalhousie in there.
Dalhousie and University of New Brunswick Redmond or Reds. PEI has a team as well. Yeah, it's just like it's the same way as our CJFL.
Yeah,
the same way we have the AKO Fratmen, Hamilton Hurricanes, London Beefeaters.
Yeah, how come it's like that? How come like University of Dalhousie doesn't like join the AUS? Like when you make it more competitive? Like I don't know the whole thing behind it.
I really don't know what's behind it. I know their big thing's basketball.
Okay.
But I would look at it like this: is that they could probably pump a lot of money into it. Probably don't want to, but then a school like Toronto that has a whole ton of money still doesn't. And you know what? Do they want to put out a product like Toronto does, or would they rather just say, let's just do hockey and basketball and be really good at it, right? Because they usually make the semifinals or finals every year in basketball. But that other league's like CJFL, right? It's colleges actually is what they are.
Yeah, I saw Holland College. I think Quinlan coached there. Yeah.
He won a championship as a head coach out there, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I've actually you and I have had multiple conversations about football before, and you've actually talked about the idea of the OUA losing some teams, specifically the 2 teams in Ottawa, sending them over to Quebec and kind of going from there. So you're not necessarily a fan of these big conferences.
No. Honestly, I think the OUA is filled with way too much, right? It just is. You got 3 teams who are perennially the bottom, and then everyone fights for the rest. Usually not against Western, and if you get through Western, it's like that's actually your championship game.
Yeah,
right. Usually that's your championship game. The two Quebec conference, the 2 North Ottawa teams. If Carleton and Ottawa GGs went over to Quebec, I think they would. It's a bilingual city. So if you're French, if you're looking to take French studies, you're going to have that all available to you in Ottawa of all the places you're going to do. Mm-hmm. I think that would also help take a little bit off the top from Laval, because again, now you're going to have am I the top recruit of Laval, or am I just recruit 5 or 6? Well, I could be the top recruit of Carleton now and play Laval. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right? That's maybe more of a better route, and then also allowing for the rest of the OUA to kind of be more competitive. Now if you're Windsor, you're trying to get a name for yourself. You don't have to worry about Ottawa and all that region. You can kind of focus a little bit more on what's in your section and north. Mm-hmm. You got Mac, you got Laurier who's trying to make a comeback. They can start to worry about not necessarily as Ottawa as much, or if they pull players from Ottawa, now you're saying, hey, now you're going to come play in the OUA, versus saying now you're over in Quebec. So it's an idea. It's a lot of these big conferences. I don't know. It's just, again, you walk in. If you look at your schedule and you see York, Toronto, and really Windsor, you're looking at what are we doing Saturday night?
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sorry for the guys that play there. I know for coach kids who play there as well. But, at the end of the day, are they getting better? Are they helping the league? Mm-hmm. Or are they just games?
Yeah.
Yep.
For sure.
I agree. I've thought that before, too. I totally agree
and
with what you're
I've talked to you, Tom, about a Super 8 or a Super 10. Mm-hmm. How they proposed that years back, right? Which is, I think, the way Canadian football should go. I don't know why we're trying to model ourselves with the NCAA when we have the same population size as California, and we should be modeling our football theories on what California does, because that's our size, and really that we should be playing statewide, which is Canada, and having the best teams play each other. If you got to travel, you guys make enough money. I'm sure Western's not going to be upset. They have to travel 4 times a year, right? And now make games competitive and force teams in the Tier 1, Tier 2 almost, right? And if you're not a Tier 2 team, then you prove it on the football field. And if you think you're a Tier 1 team, you're prove it on the football field, and and maybe only allow one AUS team in.
Sure.
Right? Allow 2 Quebec teams. Allow 4 or 5 OUA teams. And then maybe 3 West teams. And then okay, guys, go battle it out.
I've talked about this with Tom before too. I feel like they should maybe move. I mean, I don't know. There's debates to this, but I feel like it would be awesome. They went to a national playoff in Canada. So you have 3 teams out west. You have 5 teams in Ontario, 3 teams in Quebec, and then a team out in the Atlantic, have a 12-team playoff. Then instead of having conference playoffs, whoever just finished first in the OUA in the regular season would be the Yates Cup champ. They would get a bye to the quarterfinals, and you could rank it. I'd like to see the move towards that, because I feel like it would make it more competitive. I think you'd get more television exposure. I think TV stations get more into that. So I feel like it might go that direction eventually, but again, I don't know everything. That's why I'm a recliner coach.
That's why we're recliner coaches.
I know. I would think that I would love to see Laurier play St. Mary's.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to see Waterloo step into the Husky Stadium and see if they can pull out a win. Right? I'd love to see that. We're never going to see that because of the way the league is shaped right now. I never see Waterloo be in a position and St. Mary's be in a position in a national semifinal to play each other. Yeah. But those 2 schools would probably have one heck of a game that you'd probably love to televise.
I agree.
I would love to see, Manitoba play Sherbrooke or Concordia, right? Again, teams that we don't even think about Concordia, whereas back in my day, there was 2 Defensive Player of the Years that came from Concordia who are now CFL coaches and stuff. They were the powerhouse with Laval. Now they've fallen off and Montreal's taken over, but we want to see those games and allow those teams to compete and then potentially move up into into playing with the big boys, right? Same way.
Well, I think the biggest thing, 2 biggest things that go against that kind of tier 1, tier 2 kind of mindset is a lot of teams that would be in that tier 2 are teams that probably don't have enough money in the athletic department to do stuff like travel out west, travel out east, or do all those things. And you might just lose programs now, and then it becomes the debate, would you rather have multiple tiers with multiple teams and all of this stuff, or would you rather put forward one product that's the best of the best and potentially have some universities that are just thrown by the wayside and you can't field the football team because you can't compete, which I would hate to see that. I really would. But as an alumni of U of T, of York, of Windsor, you're yeah, we won 3 games in my 4 years, and they were all against those teams that I just mentioned. And you're proud of that? I don't know.
My favorite was that tattoo story you talked about.
Yeah.
That's gold.
Yeah, it was U of T got tattoos for the losing season. That's
the 0-16. The 0-4 seasons.
Yeah, incredible.
That's oh god. I
think. But you know what? If again, NCAA Division 1, NCAA Division 2. Let's say you have the Super 12, like you're saying, and then everyone else, they can give half as many scholarships as the next ones. If they win up, then now we can give more scholarships, right? And the team that was able to give more scholarships, your scholarships have been reduced, right? Maybe we do something like that again. Sure. I feel like if you split that, you're allowing the teams that don't have as much, resources to kind of compete against other teams that are kind of made to be, even though they're bigger schools, are made to be under the same, rules and regulations as yourself to allow you to compete and hopefully get more scholarships and see how much the school wants to put into coaching, how much they want to put into, other facilities, if you want to say.
Absolutely. Now, we've only got about a minute and a half left, and I promise you before we got out, we're going to plug Burlington Stampeders, because myself and Marcus are going to be coaching this next year. So, Marcus, if you want to take it away from there.
Just 2019 Stamps. We're trying to recreate something that's been around the Burlington area for a long time. I know this is Hamilton, but you know what? We're right across the water, and we're a great program. We're bringing lots of great coaching, and we're bringing a new attitude to Burlington and to the OPFL, which is the premier league here in Ontario, and we're just trying to win games, and we're trying to get kids better and get them to the U.
That's amen, brother. And actually, Maddie and myself, first time we met was with Burlington Stampeders.
Yeah, former Burlington Stampeder alumni myself, man. Great program. Probably some of the best coaching I ever got there.
That's it.
Yeah, and then you'd think about all of these teams that you and I played for. The coaches went off to university level. The players, I think there was one team where every single starter from a Stampeder team went off to play university ball. That's the kind of level that Burlington has, and now we're trying to turn it into
the standard we're setting.
Yeah.
Into Halton, all of Halton.
Yeah, all of Halton and doing that. And the best players out of Halton are university caliber. So get everybody together like that and
sign up online, BurlingtonMinorFootball.ca.
Beautiful. Once again, always wanted to say thank you so much for everybody to tuned in. We'll be back next week. Maddie and I always thank you once again. This has been Recliner Coaches on 93.3 CFMU.